Hello there, boxing fans around the world. Thank you once again for joining me on another episode on Talking Fight regarding the Olympics, which are happening, I believe, in now 32 days over in Tokyo, Japan, beginning in July. So we have a couple of news items today to report. One, depends how you look at it. One good news and one bad news. But again, depending how you look at it. So first off, I'll let you know that one of the Ugandans who arrived as part of the team has tested positive for COVID upon arrival at Tokyo's Narita Airport and was then quarantined at a government designated facility. But the rest of the squad left by charter bus over for Osaka in western Japan, where they'll train ahead of the games. So the group, who included boxers, coaches, and officials, it doesn't mention out of that group which one of them, whether it was a boxer or whether it was an official or a coach, had in fact tested. But they had all tested negative before leaving Uganda. So how one of them managed to catch COVID or test positive in this case is a little bit beyond me, being not a medical professional. But there you go. So Japan has a pretty solid gate upon the arrival, expecting the arrival of the athletes and their squads. In other news, then related to COVID and how Japan's going to handle the influx, if you will, of fans, they are now going to allow up to 10,000 Japanese fans to the 2020 games at the various events. So long as that did not surpass 50% of the venue's capacity. Now, sort of funny point. Fans, however, will not be allowed to shout or speak loudly and must wear face masks at all times while at the venue is obviously common sense. The Japanese officials also said they're not going to be testing fans as they go into these venues, but they will simply be wearing the face masks. That will also probably apply to the Paralympics, but they've not stated their intention with respect to the number of fans that will be allowed to enter the venues during the Paralympics. Anyway, it's funny, not funny again, it's just somewhat ironic that this decision to allow spectators comes despite the release of a report last week by Japanese medical experts that said holding the games without spectators was the least risky and most desirable option. To quote the BBC, who's quoting organizing committee president Saiko Hashimoto, there are so many cases, domestically and internationally, of sport events and spectators. So he's right, or she is right. I'm not sure if Seiko is a man or a woman. Sorry, apologize. But yeah, I mean, you take a look on your television, which again, the Japanese authorities were advising Japanese fans that they should engage the sports by their television sets in July as opposed to attending the games. But now they're anticipating now allowing 10,000 spectators at these events, including, funnily enough, the opening and closing ceremonies, which they anticipate another 10,000 people. Unbelievably, let me get this straight. Their 10,000 spectator limit is for Japanese fans, but they also expect at the opening and closing ceremonies that delegates and sponsors who classify it as organizers are not included in that 10,000 limit. So they're fully expecting various countries and their various officials and people who get special permits to attend these games as well. So there are some asterisks beside these numbers, I suppose. Organizers say the cap at each venue of 10,000 spectators, yes, but it's a little more complicated because those spectators will go through the lottery system, but there are other groups joining those as well. For example, they go on to mention the VIPs and the corporate guests who they're counting on coming from the organizing side of things, and they actually don't know how many of those will be attending, and admit there could be, as I said earlier, as many as 10,000 VIP guests and corporate guests. So there you go. A bit, I'm not going to say wishy-washy, but I'm going to say, is this good news or bad news. Depends how you look at COVID. But if you take a look at other sporting events, as they admit, other sporting events have spectators in the stands, and some at these stadium and venues are at capacity. So those are the two stories that have come out of the Olympics, and specifically one related to boxing and one related to the games in general. But Japan seems to have their COVID scenario under control, I'm going to say. Although their medical professionals are saying that their hospitals are at capacity, realistically, infection rates are decreasing. They used to be at 1,400, for example, per day. They're now down to 376 as of June 20th. So COVID infections on the decline in Japan, even though they've not hit that level of vaccination that other countries have. But that's our news for today from here at Talk and Fight with respect to the Olympics and how Japanese organizers are tackling the various issues. But it is interesting to note that of the 9 Ugandans who went through the gates upon arrival at the airport, one of them tested positive and was immediately quarantined. So the system is working, and they have it implemented already. And I was somewhat surprised to hear that athletes and their teams were already arriving in Japan and anticipating training prior to the Olympics, which is, as I said earlier, 32 days away. Well, that's it. That's it for us here at Talk and Fight Studios, and we'll see.